Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. I want to talk about buying fixer-upper properties. I'm going to show you how to find, buy, and make a bank on fixer-upper properties. I'm going to use this example. It's a 24-unit property. They're all 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. The rents in this area for Class A are $1,800 a month. Class C rents are $1,250. Class A just means newer property in better condition. Class C means slightly older, maybe not in as great a condition. So in this particular area where this building was located, the rents were $1,250 to $1,800 for 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. So how do you find fixer-uppers? So I'll give you 3 ways that I've found them in my career. The first thing I like to do is work with real estate agents who work in the area, specifically on this type of property. This is a commercial residential property. It's more than 4 units. So I like to find those realtors, try to work with the people who have the most experience, and ask them to help me find a fixer-upper property. That's one way. Another thing that I do, I'll do a web search of zip codes. And oftentimes these properties are located on the same websites as other properties are. They may not say fixer-upper, but you can sort of figure out by looking at the details that it's an older property and it needs work. So a third way, you can search on the acronym REO, real estate owned. Those are bank-owned properties. So in your area, there will probably be bank-owned properties in your region that you can go look at. So in this particular case, this building needed, all of the units needed remodeling. They all needed to be remodeled. And the average rent was only $920 a month on average through the 24 units. The condition of the property is dated, has not been remodeled. So why are rents usually low in fixer-upper properties? There's a couple reasons. Oftentimes, an owner has owned the property for a while. The loan may be paid off. They're more interested in not having to do any remodeling. They're more interested in maintaining the occupancy, basically. And so they're not motivated to raise rents because that risks people moving out. So over time, the rents tend to stay below the market and the units tend to be not remodeled because the owner just wants to collect the rent and not risk the move out. So they don't raise the rent. They don't do any repairs. So we want to figure out if this is a 24 unit, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 920 a month average rent, what is this thing worth? What kind of offer are we going to need to make? Okay, so it's pretty easy math to figure this out. The first thing is you have to know what a cap rate is. A cap rate for a property is the net operating income divided by its purchase price. Net operating income is the annual gross rent minus expenses and multiplied by 90%, because 10% vacancy is what you figure. So you're not going to collect all the rent from all the units all the time. There will be 10% vacant. You allow for that. So in this particular area, the cap rate is 12% for Class C properties. A 12% cap rate. So we've got 24 units. We've got $920 a month average rent. This is the total monthly rent. This is the gross monthly rent, $22,800. The annual rent is the monthly rent times 12. This is the annual gross rent for this 24-unit property, $264,900. Okay, so that's the gross rent. That's not the net operating income. We're now going to have to subtract off the expenses and allow for the 10% vacancy. So here's how we do that. We take the gross rent, the $264,960, we multiply it by 90% occupied throughout the year, and then we multiply it by 70% because 30% was expenses. So that takes us down to a net operating income for this property of $166,925. Okay, so now we have the net operating income, right? We're trying to find the purchase price, what we should offer for the property. We already know what the cap rate is. So we're just going to rearrange this equation. We're going to have, let's see here, $166,925 net operating income divided by the cap rate, right? The cap rate was this, so the cap rate comes here and the purchase price goes there. So net operating income divided by the cap rate, the property is worth $1,391,040. So somewhere in that range, if the seller is reasonable and they sell it to us for that, we'll buy it. Now, one thing to keep in mind about fixer-upper properties, this is one of the cool things about these that I've used several times in my career. If the property is something like this, it's got low rents, a lot of units need remodeling, there could even be vacancies. Sometimes banks will not lend on it, and the seller knows they're going to have to carry the first loan to sell it. So you can negotiate a very reasonable down payment with the commitment to redo the remodeling and have it all finished in 12 to 24 months to pay off the seller's loan. So that's something to keep in mind about fixer-upper properties. You can get a seller carry that allows you to put down a relatively low down payment. I put as low as 15% down on commercial residential properties. There are some loan programs for 24 units, that will allow you to put 10% down. I've seen that. I think they may be Fannie Mae programs for the right type of buyer. So, and you may have to be a veteran. Maybe it was a veterans program. Okay, so back to this example, we know what our purchase price is going to be. We offer the seller the price, they accept it. Okay, so let's assume now that we go through this place and we remodel everything. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do the units 3 or 4 at a time, or maybe 2 at a time, whatever your budget allows. The cost to do remodel per unit, maybe $10,000 each, but that's going to vary depending on the area of the country that you're in. How dated the property was, how much remodeling you're going to have to do. But if you just assume something like 10,000, you can say we're going to remodel 2 or 3 of the units at a time, raise the rents. Those higher rents will help us move on and do the other properties. And as you go through the building, your rents are going up and you have more and more cash, extra cash from the remodels to pay for the remodels for the remaining units. Okay, so let's assume the remodeling is done and we have set the rents in this range. $1,250 was for Class C, $1,800 was for Class A. These are newly remodeled units. We're going to get $1,600 a month for these remodeled units, times 24 units, times 12 months. The new annual gross rent is $460,800. Okay, so we're going to use the same calculation that we use here to figure out what the net operating income is. We're going to take the $460,800 gross rent times 90%, occupied, because 10% is going to be vacant. We allow for that. And 70% after a 30% expenses. So 70% of the rents are left over after we pay 30% expenses. This is the new net operating income, $290,304. Quick check. We've made an extra 130 grand, almost 130,000 by doing the remodels. So you can really make bank if you do this, if you find the right property. I've done this several times. And what is the property worth now? Because this is a much higher net operating income. We figured out the purchase price when we bought it by dividing the net operating income by the cap rate. We do the same here. The new net operating income divided by the 12% cap rate. This property is now worth $2,419,200. We paid $1 million less for it. We paid we've made slightly more than $1 million on this property, and you can have those remodels done in a year. If you have co-investors that are helping you put up the down payment and you do all the work yourself, and all you have is materials costs, you can easily have those 24 units remodeled within the year and make $1 million. So it's something to think about. The key is finding the right area, because the one thing you want to be careful about is the location of the property. If it's a Class C property that needs work, make sure it's in a half-decent area. It doesn't have to be, the best zip code in town. It's got to be a decent area, though, that people would be willing to live in. In other words, low to no crime. So you want to try to find these in your region, and it can take some searching. But if you're in a large metropolitan area, there's a bunch of them out there. You just have to find them. If you have realtors looking for you on your behalf, like I've done, they can find things that are not even on the market. I have bought off-market properties that were fixer-uppers, and I made out with those. So you can do that too. And this is all true all over the country. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments and I'll answer them. And I want to thank everyone for watching and have a great day.